So what was a pleasant sunny day has turned into quite a cloudy, chilly evening. This is the problem with spring in the UK. It's bloody cold. So tonight we're heading out on the Big Boys chain gang. Now this ride often turns into a bit of a tear up. There's nothing wrong with smashing it up, you know, after all riding the bike is about having fun, and trying to kill each other is a lot of fun. The problem is I struggle a bit and I do quite often tend to go drop, so we'll see how long I last tonight.
Right then, Thursday night chain gang. This is a run off on a circuit just outside of Colchester. It's the Jock Wadley Memorial Road Race circuit, which is a big early season race that's held down here in Essex. So what we do is we do 3 laps around this circuit. You can see we've got a good sized group out there and we're working hard. Pace is up. We've done half a lap by this point and we're working really hard. So what I want to talk about in this video is how do you go about hanging in with a group that's slightly beyond your abilities, where the guys are fitter and faster than you are. Now you can see here, I'm coming through on the front of the group here, 520 watts just to get through and do my turn. Now I haven't got many of those in the pot and I'm not going to last very long if I'm having to do that sort of effort regularly. So what do you do to try and reserve your energies and make sure you can stick with this group when you're out training or in a race situation? Make sure that you're staying in that breakaway or staying in the bunch for as long as possible so that you're in contention at the end. First thing that I always think guys should think about is know your limits. Know where your limits are. Now whether that's understanding where your threshold heart rate is, or using a power meter and understanding where your VO2 max, your 5-minute max power, or your FTP is, or even just on experience, knowing when you're going deep into your reserves when you haven't got much left. Know where your limits are. You'll often see guys come out on these sorts of runs where the pace is really high and they'll come through, and the first turn will be hard and they'll come through well. The second turn they'll be struggling to come through at the front. The third turn they'll be really struggling through and they're struggling to get past that man on the front, and then you don't see him again. They've done 3 turns, maybe you spent 10 minutes on the chain gang and they're gone. Now that's not going to benefit you anyway. All you've done is smash yourself up for 10 minutes. So know your limits. Know that if you go so far, so deep into yourself, you ain't going to last very long. You're far better off doing a turn, miss a turn, or sitting on the back, or sitting out before hills, or just watch this here. We're coming up on a drag here. For me to come through, 640 watts. 640 watts to come through on the front there. It's into a headwind, it's slightly uphill, we're doing 37k an hour. That hurts. That really hurts. So you got to know where your limits are. I know I can do a few more of these. The analogy that's always used is, people talk about having a box of matches. There's only so many matches in the box. You've only got a finite number of matches, and every time you burn one, every time you do an interval, an effort above threshold, you're burning a match. So here we're going up a hill, and I'm deliberately burning a match here because I want to be up at the front on this hill. Not because I want to show the guys how strong I am. I just know that I'm going to start slipping down the wheels. I'm already at max. I'm at 185 beats per minute there. So I want to be at the front. So if the guys start flying past me, I know I've got more time to try and jump on a wheel somewhere, try and recover. Just make sure I'm up the front and I'm in a good shape to get over the top of that hill. Because a lot of these guys, they're going to ride hard up the hill, but when they get to the top, they're not going to be riding as hard. So you've got that opportunity when you get to the top to recover to some extent, and you can see here the pace has actually dropped slightly from what we're doing up the hill. It's a little bit odd, but it just always happens. When you race with the really top guys, they'll hammer you over the top of the hill, and it's a good tip sometimes to attack over the top of the hill, because that's when everyone's kind of easing up after the hard effort. So you can see the group here is already thinned out somewhat. This is still the first lap, and we've lost a few guys. There's a few guys who've come through, done some hard turns, they've gone beyond their own limit, and they're at the back. Then we've got people like young Mr. Longstaff there, who is well within his abilities, and he's able to sit up and take his rain cape off there. So the second thing that I think is a good tip to just making sure you stay in is understanding the course you're on and understanding the riders around you. And what I mean by that is anticipate where the accelerations are going to be. Now we're coming up to a hill here, and I'm sort of rolling through for the front, and what's happened? Well, the guy in the front, Mr. Tom Starmer, has got bored and he's attacked. Now, you kind of knew that was going to happen, so I was slightly prepared for that, and rather than chasing him down, I've just sat up and decided to slip down the wheels. I know I can't close to him. He's gone. Look, he's halfway up the hill. There's no way I was going to close that. There's guys behind me that are going to want to close it. Let them come through. We're just getting to this point here. We've slowed slightly for a car. It's getting steeper. There's going to be an acceleration. Now, if you're on the back foot and you kind of not anticipated that happening, you're going to let a big gap go. I anticipated it. I was already out the saddle. I was in the right gear. I've still let a gap go because these guys are a lot stronger than me, but I'm pushing hard. Young Dexter there, he's gone out the back. But the other thing you'll remember here is that's the top of the hill. We're at the top of the hill. You keep pushing, you keep the effort on, and you're going to get back onto these guys because they're not going to keep pushing over the top of the hill. You can be hurting like crazy. 186 beats per minute. This really hurts. But you know it's going to stop. And also, if you know the course, you anticipate the course, I know there's a junction coming up. I know in race mode, these guys, when they know it's a closed junction, would fly through the junction. They're not going to today because they've got to look for cars. They're also hurting from that hill, and they're going to ease up a little bit into this junction. I'm in the back of the group, so I've got all the warning about what's going on in the junction. I know I can take it as hard as I can. So, I've taken the corner fairly tight, and I've closed the wheel. Now, again, this thing about anticipating accelerations, what's going to happen after a corner? You're going to get a jump, you're going to get a hard acceleration, and we're up over 400 watts. But I'm tucked in nicely here behind, I think that's Rads, who's towing me back onto the back of the group. And again, this comes back to knowing your limits. I could have flown around the outside of Rads there, but there was no need. Just sat on him nicely, used his slipstream, and got myself onto the back of the group. Again, have I come through to do a turn? Well, no. I've just absolutely nailed myself going up that hill and trying to stay on. I ain't going to go anywhere near the front. I'm not going anywhere near to putting my nose out there in the wind. I'm shouting to each of these guys, you go through. You just keep working. I'm going to sit in the back. There's a descent here. I'm going to recover. And maybe when I've recovered, I'll think about doing a turn if I think I've got it within my ability. But I'm not going to go so far that I push myself so far into the red that I'm going to get dropped by these guys in the next half a lap. So we're tucked in here nicely, doing a good speed down the hill, 65k an hour. A really bumpy road if I remember right. I'm pretty uncomfortable, but that's given me the opportunity to recover, and you can see my heart rate's down to 173, and I thought, hell, why not? Let's go in through and do a turn. Probably not advisable trying to come through and do a turn that's close to 60k an hour, and you can see I've come through, and there goes the power, 520 watts, and I clearly remember thinking that wasn't so clever. What did you do there, Ian? Know your limit. Go back to sitting on the back. So you can see these guys, they're all working strongly together. They're coming through. We're still keeping a good pace, 50k an hour across the flat bit here, and there's another little rise coming. So I'm just thinking, just sit back on the back, look out for the wind, just wait for the acceleration that's going to come as we just crest this little rise here, and just anticipate what's happening. And all the time you're looking around and thinking, okay, what other things do I just need to concentrate on here? That brings me on to the third point about how you stay in with a group. that's fitter and faster than you. And point number 3 is stay out the wind. Understand the wind, know where the wind's coming from, and stay out of it. Now the wind here is coming from our left, and we're crossing a reservoir which is completely open, so the wind is howling from our left, and we're doing 48 km an hour. So I'm thinking I need to stay out the wind, so I move to the right of the 2 guys inside of me. They give me shelter, and I can quite easily roll along here at 43 km an hour with the group, and my heart rate's stable. I'm not having to work too hard. I mean, I'm up over 400 watts there, but it's fluctuating, it's going up and down. And my main point is I'm out of the wind, because it's the wind that's going to kill you. The guys will jump and the pace will go up and down, but it's really the wind that's going to kill you. Now just fast forward it on a bit here, and I just want you to notice the trees on the right hand side. The wind's coming from our right here, and those trees are giving us shelter. So I'm sat right behind the guy in front of me, the guy called Trevor, really experienced rider. But you see now the wind is coming at us from the right, the trees have disappeared, and we've got a crosswind. So again, know where the wind's coming from, stay out of it. And I've moved to the left of Trevor. Trevor also realizes the wind's coming from the right, and he wants to be inside the man that's outside of him, and I'm in the gutter. I'm pretty much on the verge, on the grass here, but I'm prepared. I'm happy to be on the grass as long as I'm inside of Trevor's wheel and I'm getting shelter from the wind, because if I'm not getting shelter, I'm gonna have to double my watts. And at this point in the ride, where we're sort of halfway around lap 2 and I've been going pretty deep, I'm going to go out the back really quickly if I have to take the wind. Now the guys on the front, they're missing a trick here, because if they really wanted to do some damage to this group, what they need to do is get hard over to the left, put themselves in the gutter, and that means nobody can get shelter, and it means that everybody in this pace line will have to do the same amount of watts as the guy on the front, and it would blow to bits really quickly. And you'll often hear people talking about putting riders in the gutter, and that's what that's about. It's making sure that the guy behind you can't get shelter off you in a crosswind. Now I'm quite comfortable here. I'm managing most of the time to stay inside of Trevor's wheel. There's a little tiny narrow gap for me to stay in, but it's offering me a huge amount of shelter, and I'm doing less than 200 watts here, less than 200 watts in a group where the guy on the front is probably doing over 400. So stay out of the wind. The wind is not your friend. You don't want to be sticking your nose out there in the wind and having to do extra watts. Another important point here, we're starting to hit a climb. Again, it comes back to anticipating accelerations. Trevor's a smart rider, he's moved up the group. So, we've both been hanging on the back and we're both hurting, but he's a smart guy and he's moved up, and it's like before, if you move up the group, it gives you wheels to slip back. And also, he's completely out of the wind there because he's got a whole line of riders sheltering him. Although the wind's kind of just, we've turned away from the wind slightly, it's coming slightly from behind us. So know where the wind's coming from, stay out of the wind. The fourth point, the fourth thing you can do to make sure that you stay with guys that are stronger than you, is probably the most fundamental and important thing in cycling. It's mental toughness. Now, you might think your legs hurt, but your legs will keep going. The thing that's telling you your legs hurt is your brain, and you don't want to listen to your brain because it's telling you something you don't need. Your legs will just keep going round. If you can understand that the pain is just something you have to deal with, and that it's temporary, and that there will be respite, you'll be able to get through a lot of situations where otherwise you'd be jumping off the back. Now, again, here I'm in the hurt house. Tom's put us all in the pain cave, and I'm just doing everything I can to hold the wheels here. And it's the same place as before. We've crested that little rise. I know there's a junction coming up. I know Tom's put a dig in, but he's not going to make it last forever. And we're strung out, and it's just a case of holding on to that wheel, making sure that you just keep going. Now, I'm well above my threshold. I've been well above my threshold for ages, and I mean all sorts of pain. but you just have to keep going, shut it out, and know that it will get easier. So if I get around this corner, I know there's going to be acceleration. Again, anticipate accelerations. So I get on the power, 600 watts to hold that wheel. Make sure you hold that wheel, because that's a short-term burn, and I know that again after that we're going to be descending. There's going to be an opportunity to rest on the back here. Tom's come back to the group, so you know that little attack by him was short-lived, and you just have to suck it up and keep going. Again, I know my limits. I ain't going to do any work. I'm not going to come through there. If I come through and put my nose in the wind, I'm dead. I'm out the back. So I'm just going to sit in here, keep telling the guys to push through. I'm still hurting. I'm still just below my threshold, but we're going downhill now, and I know I've got a chance to recover. I've got an opportunity to hang in there and recover. All the time here though, what you're trying to do as well is, whilst you're trying to process that pain, dealing with it, you're also looking around and thinking, what's going on with the guys around me? Who's suffering? Who's going to let a wheel go? Who do I need to move up in front of? Because this, you remember how big this group was at the start? What, there's 6 guys there now? So we've lost a lot of guys. There's a lot of people being put at the back by the efforts that a few of these strong boys are putting in. So managed to recover there. I've got down to 161 beats per minute. Still a lot of fatigue in my legs, but I'm just going to sit in here at the back. These guys, they're strong. They're going to carry on doing their turns. We're doing a real ripper of a pace along the bottom here, but I'm just going to sit in, hoping I can hang in for the last lap and make it to the end, and maybe see what I've got left in the tank. Now, when you're trying to hang on the back of a chain gang like this, where you're not doing any turns, it's always important to try and make sure that you're hanging on to the slow side and you're allowing the guy to come back to you. If you try and hang on to the guy that's accelerating on the pace side of the pace line, you're constantly going to be accelerating yourself, and you're going to blow yourself to bits. Now, what I'm just trying to do here is the point I made earlier about guys fatiguing, and so Rads has tried to come through, he can't. And rather than sit on his wheel, I've moved across the other guy, because I just got the feeling he was starting to struggle and he was going to go. And I think he does across the reservoir this time. So again, just keep rolling back onto the guy that's slowing. He's coming to me. Allow them to come to me rather than trying to jump onto the guy on the pace side. And just see how much longer we can last. So across the reservoir, wind's going to come to the left. What we're going to do? We don't want to be in the wind. So I'm just going to ease myself up, not getting involved in the pace line, but just easing myself up on the right hand side, trying to get out the wind a little bit. And again, I'm making this assessment. What's this guy doing? Is he struggling? Is he going to go out the back? Do I need to move up to the next guy? Well, I think he's okay. I think he's okay for the minute. I'm going to get myself out the wind there, and just have a look at what's happening. We've got a little bit of a climb coming up here again, so what do? We anticipate the accelerations, and there's going to be a kick. This is the last lap. Tom's moved to the front. He's the strongest guy in this group, and he's going to push it on. So here it comes, up to 400 and odd watts. And again, I'm looking at the guy in front of me. Has he got the energy for this climb, or is he going to let it go? What's happening? I'm dying, to be honest here. I'm 500 watts, and there's a guy here going backwards. We let a gap go. Have I got it to just bridge across for the crest here? And again, it's that mental toughness. This hill isn't going to last forever. There's a junction at the top. Do I keep pushing on? Hell yes I do. It's hurting a lot, but I'm going to stick in there, hang on to these guys, and we're at the top. We're at the top, and the group's still together. So that's another little victory. And again, like I said, you're going to take it fairly fast through this corner. A little attack on the front there, and this is where I mess it up. And it's not really about fitness or any of the things I just talked about. I just make a mistake, just make a simple mistake. I get on the gas and I think I'm on, and allowing the slow line to come back to me, and they've just really kicked on. They've really kicked on, and I kind of missed it. I just didn't notice it, and they've gone, and we're riding into a headwind here, and there's no way I'm closing that. This guy's come across, and he's strong, so he gets across, but I'm struggling. I'm struggling in this headwind to try and close the gap to them. It's just not going to happen. So, you know, it was kind of a disappointing end to a really good ride for me. I've never got that far on this event, 2.5 laps. It was a lot of fun, and I think if you just use those 4 principles, know your limits so you don't go beyond what you are able to do, stay out the wind, anticipate the accelerations, and be tough, be mentally tough. You can beat the fittest guy in the group by being more robust mentally than him, by not giving up. And yeah, keep those 4 things in mind and you'll last a lot longer.